And during the few moments that we have left, we want to have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Oh, here we go again. Here we go again. So, Aaron posted another article that we're taking flack from, and it's warranted considering what the Christian community is on. It is, but the Christian community is on what it shouldn't be on. So, Aaron, again, the link to the article is going to be in the description below. Aaron has another article. He wrote, "When Should You Get Hitched?" Part 1 of 2. And he posted on his private Facebook. But we also had somebody comment on Gen XY. I'll get to that one a bit later in a second. But I'm reading through the comments from some of the people who read his article, and Aaron's brought this up. Like, not everyone's love story is going to be the same. And we get that, but there needs to be a general rule that everyone follows. And we need to form those rules based off of facts that we know to be true. Like, everyone wants men to be the leaders, the protectors, the providers of society. And everyone wants women to be the caretakers, the nurturers, the ones who sort of run the day-to-day operations, blah, 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 blah. And again, I'm talking about the Christian community. So if you're not a Christian, don't come at me with all the feminists. A woman can do this. We ain't talking about all that, right? We're just talking about the Christian community and the roles of men and women. So if you're not a Christian, don't even bother commenting in the comment section. So if that's what we're on, then we have to acknowledge something when it comes to men. First off, it takes time to learn what it is to be a proper provider and protector, and it also takes time to get the things together to be a provider. And what I mean by that is this. If a man's supposed to be the head of the household, he's going to have to learn how to be the head of a household. And yes, he should learn that from his father. But if he's going to also be the provider, which is, back in the day, it was, he was the one who went out and hunted. He was the one who protected the tribe, blah, 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 which we have now made that to a point of he is the primary breadwinner. He's the one who earns the money so that the woman can go out and get the, resources, the food, the clothes, the this, the that, and the other to take care of the house. But the man's the one who provides the money. So if he's going to be the leader in that sense, he needs time to get a job, work at that job, earn more money to then take care of the family. Well, that takes time. So therefore, the guy is going to be older when he gets that financial resource and clout and social status. And that's what Aaron means when he's like, guys, you should wait till you get older before you marry. And women should do it earlier. And the reason why Aaron says you should do it earlier is because women are not tasked with the responsibility of being the provider, the protector, and just the provider and protector of society. They're not tasked with that. Therefore, them wasting time and spending all of their youth going out and getting a job and going up the, corporate ladder to establish themselves financially and socially to be at the same level that a man should be to provide for a family is a waste of time. Why? Because women are valued off of their beauty. You are not beautiful when you are old. Period. I know all the women are probably like, well, she's very beautiful in her twilight. No. We're not talking about when people are 80 and 90 years old, because everyone's ugly at that point. You are not going to, how to say this? No, I'm using the same example Aaron used in one of our conversations. No matter how good you look, A 35-year-old woman is not as beautiful as a 20-year-old woman. Now, I'm speaking in the sense of, they're relatively the same. Like, you're not going to sit here and give me a beautiful woman naturally who's taking care of herself and works out and does all that stuff at 35, and then compare her to the girl whose parents never made her do anything and she sat around all day and got fat and she's 20. No, 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 no. We're not comparing apples and oranges. We're comparing apples and apples. So if you take a picture of that woman who took care of herself all these years, and at the age of 35, and look at a picture of her when she was 20, 21, she was more beautiful when she was 20 or 21. Okay? So, since women are valued off of their beauty and what they look like, then women, you have you have high cards in the relationship poker game early, and they depreciate as you get older. Men, you are the opposite. You have low value cards, even though you look good, but you're not valued off of your looks necessarily. You're valued off of what can you provide. Therefore, your cards are valued later. Now, there is a law of diminishing returns and all that stuff where if, your value gets higher and higher and higher and higher, then you pick out and then, you're just old and no one cares about you. And then, but at that point, you're just an elderly person. So, or you're like in your 50s anyway. So children should not be of a priority in your life outside of, you're waiting for your kids to get married or, you're waiting for grandchildren or whatever it may be. But no, we're talking about finding your spouse and starting a family. That's the age group demographic we're talking about. So we're really talking about 18 to 35. Not to get off on that rabbit trail, but men, you are valued off of your utility and what you have proven to do. Women, you are valued off of your looks and your beauty, period. Since that's the case, that's why Aaron says, men, you should get married later and you should date younger. Why? Because when you date a woman who's younger, you get all of those years of her beauty. You don't get 3 or 4 years of her looking beautiful, and then time runs its course on her body and her figure, and you get all of her good years, as I heard someone else put it. But men, she's getting your good years. Why? Because you've established something for her to come into. You have your own house, apartment, dwelling, whatever. You have your own car. You have a good job. You can take care of the finances going around the house, so she can come into a safe environment. Ladies, you are pick of the litter when you are young. Why? Because you're there to attract a mate, which should be a man. Again, if you're not a Christian, none of this applies to you, but you are young, you are pretty. All the guys will, they will go and do just ignorant, outrageous things for your attention. But they only do that when you're pretty. You're prettiest when you are young. A catty 32-year-old woman, even if she may be beautiful for 32, is not going to be catty and a man put up with it like he would a 23, 22, 21, 20-year-old catty girl. See, if she's that young, he'll just be like, oh, okay, she's young and stupid, but she's hot, so I'll deal with it. When you're 30, 31, 32, it's going to be, she's older, she should know better, and I'm not putting up with that because, X, Y, and Z. So it sucks, yeah, but you got to make the decision early if you want the quintessential relationship that people are looking for. Now, of course, with that said, you can still go into, I want a girl who's more mature, looks don't really matter, and blah, 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 blah. Once we go into that realm, now you're talking about individual preferences. You see, and this is where me and Aaron, we've had this argument round and round and round and round and round. I personally want to marry someone who's my age, but that has to do with someone I can relate to because I'm thinking about the grandchildren years and blah blah blah, and and so forth. But and Aaron is too, but Aaron is more so of trying to practice what he preaches, But again, I'm looking at myself as an individual. That's why Aaron and I usually go back and forth with this. But we've argued this point so much to the point where we know what we're both on. So we kind of don't have this argument anymore. But I'm saying what I'm saying because as a general rule, outside of myself, this is how it should be. So, take it or leave it. But again, but not to get off on all that, but. I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, getting back to this article. Oh, yeah, never mind. So with that said, let's get back to this article. And the comments that came in were, again, indicative of the problem, just like it was with the his last article about how we can't take, the baby boomers dating advice. And again, we have some more boomers. Well, actually, I wouldn't say boomers. There are a couple of early Xers, but they're essentially the same thought process, age demographic. But someone said, where was it? I got it called up right here because I got a comment as I go through this. What was it? Yeah, this lady said that she got married when she was 22 years old. And it didn't work out. And she's married for 18 years. And it was an unequally yoked marriage, which that needs to be vetted out. So, or should I say, the Christian community needs to really define what yoked is rather than just saying it. Because I have a feeling that all of the stuff that Christians talk about and say when it comes to do not be unequally yoked in marriage we're not taking that how it was actually written, because there's a lot of situations where I see people who are unequally yoked as far as how the Christian community is dealing with it, but yet their marriages are fine. Then there's people who are equally yoked who are, well, we have relationship issues and we're trying to work through it with the Lord, and it's like, oh, here we go. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that Christians, we're not taking that piece of scripture the way that it was actually meant, but I digress from that point. But she said she was in an unequally yoked marriage for 18 years. She got divorced and she got remarried in her 40s. Aaron's reply to that was basically saying that, again, she was operating on an individual basis, but, she was past childbearing age because she married somebody relatively her same age. And she's like, and Aaron's point was, to her, was basically, it came down to, you weren't looking for kids and neither was he. Therefore, beauty wasn't as much of a factor, or wasn't even a factor, as it would have been if you were to reverse the time period and go back to when you were 22 and he would have been, 22-ish. She didn't say how old her now husband was, but the situation will be different because you're starting out a family, you're trying to have kids, et cetera and so forth. And he basically just said, all the points that I outlined in my article. So, but, what did she say? She went on to talk about how she still she talked about how she recommends that women, get married in their early 30s. Like either early 30s or late 20s. And that's when the age works out. And see, that goes right back to what Aaron and I were talking about. Like, you are older then, and you are not as attractive as you are in your early 20s. Now, here's where when women get caught up in emotions and men have a very clear understanding of what's being said that's not being directly said. So let me just go ahead and say what it is. We live in the United States of America where technology is relied upon to do physical work. And people don't take care of themselves. And especially when you have the background of feminism saying that no matter how fat and disgusting women are, they're still beautiful, that presents a problem. Because now you have all these women who don't take care of themselves. They have the stress of working of a job in general. I mean, that's just regardless. But again, that's feminism telling women that they have to work and that they're not worth value to society if they're at home taking care of kids. But you have women who don't take care of themselves. So once they're in their late 20s and early 30s, if they've been taught you're beautiful no matter what, and they're hearing those messages and those themes since they were little girls, at that point you now have 25 years at least of women hearing that they're beautiful no matter what. If a man doesn't accept you, then that's his problem, and blah 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 blah. All the while, men's biological imperative is to get the most pretty woman you can. And women, that's actually to your advantage, because if a man chooses you based off of your looks and he thinks that you're just, all this beautiful woman, he's not going to cheat. But if he feels as though he can do better, it's only a matter of time before those eyes start wandering, and then that's when you start finding how do I keep this clean and Christian? Women's clothing that you did not purchase in your bedroom. Okay, so that's actually to your advantage, is to look beautiful and pretty in the eyes of your boyfriend / husband. Anyway, so with that being the case, if a woman waits till she's in her late 20s or early 30s to get married, she hasn't been taking care of herself, or she has this look shouldn't matter. Let's go best case scenario. Second best case scenario, that she's naturally beautiful and she doesn't have to work that hard to retain her beauty. If she marries at 30, okay, and she marries at 30. Oh, let me add this real quick. Women always like to go for men who have their stuff together and feel established. That's why women always tend to go for guys who are older than them, is because they have they're mature, they aren't as childish as men my own age. They have this together, they have that together. That was one of the biggest. That was probably like the second biggest hurdle in high school that I had to deal with. But again, I said it before. Women are I don't want to say socialized, but women adapt to social environments faster than men do. That's why they have the appearance of maturing faster. They don't mature faster. It's women fit into social structures a lot faster and easier than men. Now, the truth behind that is because women define social structures and social dynamics and norms. That's why that is the case. Men don't. Our job is to protect that social structure that women have created. That's really what we're saying. So when men aren't behaving, air quotes on aren't behaving, it's because that we're not meant to behave. We're not meant to act like girls. That's why that's the case. All right, now back on topic. So when women wait till that late to get married, you only have a few more years left before, time's just going to run its course. Like 35, 40, 45 years old, like you're going to get, visibly less attractive in general. Like, yeah, you'll be pretty in comparison to people your age, but you are not going to be 40 years old going into a club thinking that, you're about to take all the guys away from the girls who are 20, 21, or okay, let's say, let's just go with everyone goes to the club at the proper age of 21. You're not going to go into a club, or matter of fact, let's not even use club. Let's just say a social event. Period. If you're in your 40s or late 30s, you're not going to walk into a social event with a bunch of guys who are looking for chicks. And you think that, all those guys are going to go for you and not the 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old girls. Like that's just not going to happen. I'm sorry, and I know you don't want to hear that. And I know you know that deep down inside, but that's a bitter pill to swallow. It really is. I understand. But it is what it is, and you just got to deal with it. So with that being the case, if you wait that long to get married, see, men are very logical. So men are going to go, do I marry this chick she's pretty, but she's 30, 31, but I know she's only going to be pretty for another few years, and then it's going to be relatively pretty. Like, she's pretty to be 37. She's pretty to be 41. She's pretty to be 45. She's pretty to be 49. She's pretty to be 52. She's pretty to be 57. She's pretty to be 60. It starts to become relative. But when a guy is looking for a girl to start a life with, he's not going to look at the 32-year-old, 31-year-old, 30-year-old and go, she's beautiful. I'll start a life with her. While at the same time, he has this 22-year-old who's like, hey, you're cute, yeah, me and my friends, we're just, we're going to go here, and you're welcome to come if you want. Like, yeah, he's not going to go for the 31-year-old. He's going to go for the 22-year-old, period. I don't care what you say. That's just how men are. I would know because I am one. And again, I know women don't like hearing that, but that's the way men are. Because men go for what's prettiest. That's our hard wiring. Now, again, if you want to talk to individuals like me, myself, I will sacrifice beauty for brains. But that's because I'm older and there's certain things that I won't put up with that I'm not going to get from girls in their early 20s. And I hated it when I was in my early 20s because that's the same stuff that girls were on. But some guys can handle it. Most guys can handle it. And most guys will handle it. I specifically will not, which is why I have no problem, dating a girl in her late 20s or early 30s. But that's just me. But I'll tell you right now, if I'm still single by 35 or 36, I am not going to be looking at 35 and 36-year-olds. I will look at 27, 28, 29-year-olds and up, or up to 30. Maybe 31. It depends on what she brings to the table. But that, again, that's just hard wiring. It's the way we were built. Take it or leave it. Goodness. Sometimes I feel like I shouldn't have to say this stuff, but again, if Tony Evans put it in a great a great view that it follows the old saying of if common sense were if common sense were as common as we think that it is, it wouldn't be called uncommon sense. It wouldn't be called common sense. It would be called sense. But where was I going? Anyway, see, I just whatever. Because I just feel like I shouldn't be explaining this stuff, but obviously we have to because we got women running around not getting married because they want to find Jesus, even though they're Christians and they read the Bible. It's like, well, you already found Jesus, so I don't know what are you waiting for now? We got men running around doing the same thing, like the Lord will provide me a wife, so I'm going to go do missions. It's like, are you looking for a wife in the mission field? No, I'm not. But, if you don't look, then that's when you find them. It's just like, how do you find what you're not looking for? It's like you have to have your eyes open. So when she hits on you, you'll be like, oh, here she is. Thus saith the Lord. People's logical trains are just off. They're off the chain. Anyway, so what else? She goes on to say, I've caught up to where I was before I started this video. So yeah, Aaron Taylor, that's a terrible dating strategy is to wait until you're in your late 20s, early 30s. Again, for all the reasons he mentioned in his article and all the reasons that I've just said, it's like, okay. And he even threw in the part of saying that I'll even give him a quote, and it's doubtedly unrealistic if you're a Christian telling them to wait until marriage to have sex. Amen, Aaron. Amen. How do I keep this as clean as possible? I know, I'll just say this. Doesn't the Bible talk about don't tempt thyself and avoid temptation and, et cetera and so forth? Okay, the longer you wait and the longer you are around something, it's going to have an influence on you, period. We are not going to live in this Western culture society where sex is used to sell and promote everything, and you really think that you are going to last 25 to 30 plus years and not be tempted or not be affected or not have thoughts and images in your mind that shouldn't be there. That is very unrealistic. And I love how everyone's like, well, the Bible says this and the Bible says that. Okay, first off, the Bible was written a long time ago. Now, I'm not saying that as we should disregard it. Let me finish. I'm saying the Bible was written a long time ago when people had a lot more sense than we have now. When people were getting married back then, they were 14, 15, 16 years old. Why were they getting married that way? It's because they weren't distracted by stupid stuff like we are now. They didn't have reality television. They weren't they weren't having elections between a ultra wealthy self-made reality TV star and a war criminal. They weren't, busy with trying to get the latest, cell phone, the latest trinket here or there to impress their friends with. They were busy farming and tilling the land and, having communities and trading and making sure that they all had stable lives so they could operate in an agricultural environment. Therefore, their maturity was hit earlier. A 16-year-old back in biblical days was the equivalent of like a 22-year-old now. That is why we cannot be on the same. That is why things like this don't really convert very well. It's because we have people. Again, we have society and now Christians. And Aaron and I should do a video on the exemptions of just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're exempt from society in which you live. It really doesn't. And people can't quite make that bridge gap, or they can't quite bridge that gap of. I won't say knowledge, but You know what I mean? They can't quite make that mental jump. But you are not going to sit here and delay, let's just go with biblical times, since that's the standard everyone likes to use as just Christians. Let's say you're supposed to get married at 15. Let's just go with split the difference. If you're waiting till you're 25 or 30 to get married, you are behind 10 to 15 years where you actually should be, if you want to use the Bible as your reference of what is right and wrong in the standard. So when you talk about you need to wait till you're more mature, well, then we need to address the culture in which we live. Why are we waiting until we're 30 to do stuff? What are we doing from 18 to 30 that what is that? What are those 12 years spent doing? You may sit here and say, oh, well, you go to college. Okay, that's only 4 years. What about the other 8 years? Or however many, let's just say you get your doctorates or whatever. Well, actually, if you get your doctorate, that takes you to your late 20s. So that only leaves you 3 years left, something like that. So again, what are you doing? Let's go with that. Let's say everyone gets their doctorates, which that's not going to happen, but let's just say they did. What are you going to do during those 3 years then? Are you going to party? Are you going to go have fun with your girls, with your dudes? Are you going to just travel the world? Like what are you going to do? Because you got your doctorates for a reason. So are you going to have a job? Okay, now you really think that you're going to get a job and you're going to have a high-paying job and you're going to be able to take care of a family? I'm talking to men right now. You're going to have a high-paying job to take care of a family in just 3 years? Yeah, you have a doctorate, but you don't have actual work experience because you spent all that time in school. And let's just say you did a little co-op or whatever, and okay, you worked for this company as you were getting your doctorates. Guess what? You're not even 30 yet. No one's going to take you seriously. You see what I mean? See, all of these little Western culture things keep us in a sophomoric state, and we can't sit here and try to operate as Christians who want to follow the Bible in its exact meaning and definitions, while simultaneously trying to adhere to the world's view of stuff, wait till you're 30, you're not mature yet, this, that, and the third. You can't operate like that. I listened to a sermon on faith about trusting in God on that, and I'll get to that here in a second, about trusting God, and it was by Tony Evans, and he's like, you can't mix the secular with the sacred. That he's like, the Bible calls that double-mindedness, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're saying that, let's wait till we're 30, which is what the world says, and then but let's still operate and hold all the rules that the Bible says, when the Bible's like, nah, y'all should have been had kids by 30. I'm looking the Bible when it's like, the son of so-and-so who's the son of so-and-so who's the son of so-and-so. And it's like, people knew their great-grandparents. Well, yeah, you can know your great-grandparents when everyone has kids from, 15 to 18 years old. But you're not gonna know your great grandkids when you have kids at 30. Do the math. You have kids at 30, so now you're 30. 30 years from then, your kids are now 30 having kids. So you're 60 and your grandkids are just now being born. If we only live to about 75, 80 years old, your grandchildren are 5 years old, maybe 10 when you die. But yet, if you have kids when you're 15, 20, then you're a grandparent when you're 40, which means that when your grandchildren are 60, or when you are 60 when your grandchildren are 20. So your grandkids, know your grandkids, and you probably even will know. Let's say you live to be 80, you will know your great grandchildren. And they will know and remember you and say, oh yeah, when I was a little kid, they would take me here and they would take me there and blah, 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 blah. Like me, I know my great grandmother who just died a couple years ago. She was 90 something years old, but that's because she had my grandparents when she was in her 20s. Then my grandparents had my parents when they were in their early 20s. Now my parents had me in their late 20s, but there are enough previous generations to where I was able to know and meet my great grandparents, and again, Christians, we can't sit here and operate under the life standard that the Bible has or the life customs that the Bible has, and then simultaneously try to sit here and listen to, Dr. So and so about how we should live our lives. It's just like Dr. So and so is not a Christian. That's why they're miserable. That's why they have a doctorates in social humanity studies or whatever made up degree that they've decided to get a doctorate in, so they can tell other people what to do because they're unhappy. It's just like you can't do that. But anyway. Okay, I keep getting off on these diatribes because there's just so much insanity to address. But moving on here. So the lady Aaron's talking to, she brought up the point that 26 to 31 is still very young. Okay, yes, it is young, but we live in a culture and a society where people don't take care of themselves. Because the Bible promises us, the Bible says that if you take care of yourself and you live according to the Lord, He will give you 120 years. Science tells us that we have 75 to 80 years to live. I think there's 77 for a man, 83 for a woman. So I'm lowballing both of them because I'm accounting for the partiers. So that being the case, let's just operate on what society says just for this point. If you're going to die at 75 or 80 years old, you are middle aged at 40. If you wait till you're 30 to start your life and to have children, you only have 10 years before you are middle aged. Now, yes, that's still young because you're not over the quote unquote hill, but again, you are a grandparent with 15, 20 years left on the clock. So you'll know your grandchildren kind of, sort of, maybe. Again, that's if you hit 80. Because let's say, because I remember I have a lot of friends who I've known through the years whose grandparents have died in their early 70s. And it's just like, why are they dying off so early? And like, oh, well, I really didn't know my grandparents. It's like, oh yeah, they died at 72, but I was a little kid then. It's just like, why? Then you look at how old they were when they had kids. It's like, oh, you had 3 generations that was living according to the world. Like, oh yeah, your grandparents had your parents at 35, and your parents had you at 30, 33. It's like, yeah, that's why they were old as heck when you were like 6. It's like, see again. You can't live according to the world and live according to God and, it line up. That's why the world hates what God has to say. It's because they're not on the same page. So, anyway, moving on. Yeah, see, they just go on. Aaron talks about equating age with maturity, which, I mean, how many videos do we got to do on the baby boomers and how they're older than us, but not, like, mentally. I mean, they're mentally older than us, and yes, they are ahead of us, but where we were at 25 was not the same program that they were on at 25. So, again, that goes into generational dynamics. And then, and I'm sorry for the baby boomers who are listening to this who weren't on the program that the other baby boomers were on. We're not talking about you. We're talking about the morons out there who are like, oh, yeah, okay, now we see how much we've messed up because we want to be grandparents now like our parents were, but our kids are still running around, acting like they're 19, 20 years old, just dating because the weekend is coming up and, oh, now we're sorry. But see, the damage is already done. So, or the people who were grandparents before they wanted to be grandparents, and y'all know who I'm talking about. So, yeah, there's that. But Aaron wrote some long comment. I'm not gonna go and read through all that. But another guy Aaron talks about. He talks about. Hold on, give me a second. I want to reread this just to make sure I understand what he's saying. Yeah, see, okay, yeah, that's what I thought he meant. He's on the same program that I wanted, is that people should get married in their early 20s. And he's like the cutest couple. I'll use a direct quote. The cutest couples that I've met have been married since they were in their 20s. I've also witnessed plenty of failed engagements occur in the early 20s. So. Now that this is what he's saying is like the cutest couples are ones who got married in their early 30s or early 20s. I'm sorry, And that is because they spent their 20s just fighting it out amongst each other. Like, yes, you just have to deal with it. If you wait till your 30s, and I'm a shift to the male perspective right now. If you get married at 30, you're going to fight with your wife. Okay, as a man, you're going to fight with your wife, not because she's just, you can't work with her or she's being difficult. It's just you're dealing with another human being who was raised in a different household, etc. and so forth. Go down the line, okay? When you are that late in life, you have experienced enough life to where there's certain things you are not going to put up with. And if she's your age as well, there's certain things that she's not going to put up with because, this, that, and the other. Because you guys are so set in your ways that, because you haven't had to deal with another person, as a lifelong spouse or as a spouse, that the arguments that you guys are going to get into are going to be knockdown, drag out fights because you're the same age, you've gone the same amount of time with, living, let's just say by yourself, even if you've had relationships, you're in and out, but you're not like, there's no one person you're committed to, so you don't have to really fight out certain dynamics. I mean, I hope people use discernment when I'm saying. I'm not really describing it right, but you get the point that, I'm not describing it right, but you get the point that I'm making. So, when you, as a man, when you fight with a woman, you are willing to deal with her a lot more when she's pretty than when she's not pretty. Okay? Women, I know that hurts. Too bad. It is what it is. When you deal with someone who's younger than you, you have the mentality of, oh, they're younger, they don't know, of course they're going to react this way. Let me just let them, scream their heart out, and then we're going to do what I want to anyway. That's the way it is when you're older. And I know that's the way it is in road because when I was 22, I was involved with a 31-year-old, and that's exactly how she treated me. It was very, oh, well, you're 22, 23. Of course you would say that. So I'm just going to let you think that, and then, I'm going to try to sway you to my opinion because that's the way it should be. Now, it didn't work. Why? Because I'm a man. And she's a woman, and that's just I'm on the Christian principle of men lead the relationship, but she wasn't. Again, and now we can that was unequally yoked. We can talk about that later. But I learned a lot of lessons from that relationship. It didn't last very long too. I wonder why. So, but again, see, when a man's in that position, when the man's older and the woman's younger, it's a lot more tolerable. Why? Because she's pretty. Why? Because she's younger, so you can deal with that. I'm older than you, so I know better. Mentality. Which for a women need that foundation, that stability, emotional stability, which men, you are in a better position to do that when you were older and when you were more established and when you're like, yeah, there's just certain things I'm not putting up with, but she's a woman, I know she's emotional, blah, 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 I can handle it. See, when it's reversed, it doesn't work like that, but yeah, going back to the why people should be married when they're in their early 20s, it's like you spend all of your good years together, now I'm going back to, sort of a third party view here. He's beautiful for the ladies. She's beautiful for the guys. So you're willing to put up with each other. You just got to fight it out. And then by the time you're in your, early 30s, you've already spent almost a decade with each other. You had each other's good years, all the youthfulness, all the adventures and the blah, 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 blah. And you probably got a couple kids now. And it's fine that you have a couple kids because you guys were like, oh, well, we're young, we're broke. So you had to develop your system of how do I survive this with this person. So when you have kids, you can just go right into, oh, hey, honey, I need you to do this. All right, cool. And then you already have that unspoken understanding of what it was. Why? Because you spent 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26 fighting it out. You weren't, you weren't starting relatively fresh like, oh, we've only been dating 2 years, so we're not quite at the point of unspoken language. There's still some, oh, she knew I meant this. Oh, wait, okay, she didn't know that I meant this way. She understood that I wanted this sort of thing done, but not quite. So now we got to fight about that. But now there's kids involved. So now it's like, oh, we can't fight in front of the kids, or, the kids pick up on the animosity, blah, 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 blah. And, we have to work some things out. And again, it's not impossible, but it's just a little bit more difficult. And why would you make life harder for yourself? But it just goes into that. Now, what this guy said about, he has seen failed engagements occur in the early 20s, yeah, that's fine. Because, again, we live in a sophomoric society where people want to play around and not take life seriously until they're in their 30s. Well, when you have two children getting together, making adult decisions, what's the good that's going to come out of that? There isn't going to be any. There's just it's like you have two kids trying to be adults, and that goes back to we cannot operate on the world's view of stuff while simultaneously talking about we must do this, thus saith the Lord. It's just you got to pick one. You have to pick one. Are we going to operate on God's principles, or are we going to operate on the world and Dr. So-and-so and philosopher whoever's principles? You can't do that. And you have to, and that also comes into maturity and reading the Bible and knowing, okay, what's biblical and what did God say versus what sounds biblical and what sounds like something God would say, because, I've taken it upon myself. Actually, I can't even say taking it upon myself. I'm going through and reading the entire Bible cover to cover. Like I want to read all the books that everybody just skips over when we all go to church and all that stuff. I want to read all that stuff just to put it in context and understanding. Just in context and understanding. And me personally, I feel like the Holy Spirit has beat me into submission on doing that. But that's my own personal walk. I ain't gonna get into all that. But yeah, it's just like, there's some things that sound biblical that aren't, like wait until you're ready and, you want to have, your stuff together and be ready for your spouse. It's like, yeah, that sounds like something God would probably want you to do. Did God ever say that? No, not one time, not at all. He just said, be fruitful and multiply. That was his instructions. And save sex for marriage, or not save sex for marriage. He never said that either. He said, what was it? Do not be sexually immoral amongst yourself, and save sexual relations for the marriage bed. So that basically just that. Well, okay, that does say save sex for marriage. So there you go, right there. It's just like it's like just because something sounds biblical doesn't mean that it is, and it may sound like a good idea, but sometimes again, men mean mankind. We have seemingly good ideas that end up in disaster. Perfect example. The old saying, professionals built the Titanic, amateurs built the Ark. There you go, right there. It's just like, yeah, see, the Ark didn't have watertight compartments in case, they were to hit something or there would be a breach in the hull of the ship to preserve everything. It was just like he built a boat and bam, there we go. Everything got on it and everything lasted. But the Titanic had all these, safety valves and, water pumps and lifeboats. not enough lifeboats, obviously, but they had all these little contingency plans, and yet the ship's still at the bottom of the ocean, and then more people died than what was on the ship. But the Ark didn't have any didn't have any safety measures on it that we know of, and it's the reason why mankind is still here after God decided to destroy the world via the flood. So, it's just because, we want to, help God out in his plan doesn't mean that that's going to be in our best, interest. But anyway, I just want to wrap this up and say, this is why relationships are so hard when you're a Christian, because we got people running around talking about, let's follow the world's advice by waiting until we're 30 before we take life seriously. Let's wait until we become corporate executives, which is all stuff that the world preaches, before we get married and take on a family and, have kids and blah, 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 blah. While the God says, find someone, marriage is between one man and one woman, save sex for marriage, and this is how husbands are to act, this is how wives are supposed to act. That's it. It's just like, he didn't say nothing about, you must taketh thy father's farm and run it before you take on a wife to bring her into your household, thus saith the Lord. Like, no, he didn't go through all that. That was mankind saying that stuff, and then again, that can be translated to us like, well, you have a full-time job, but you don't make quite enough money. So, you really shouldn't be in the position to have a wife, which the Lord never said that women find a man who has, who can provide you with, 13 goats versus 7, before you get married. It's like, no. God never said none of that. God never said none of that. God says, wives behave this way, husbands behave this way, save sex for marriage, that's it. It's like everything else, we just got to work it out. And in the world, The world don't want to hear all that. The world wants to hear that, men, you have to make X amount of dollars, and women, you should get a man who makes that much money. But then again, women, you should make that much money because men can't be trusted. So you need to have your own, and and that brings in trust issues that people don't want to talk about. Which I can go into a whole lot of examples of how that doesn't work. How when a man got his bank account, a woman got his bank account, and then they get married, and it's just like, well, we're just gonna have separate accounts. And it's just like the two shall become one, but okay, and it's okay, it's like that is a door for the evil one to come in and start some stuff. Again, it's symbolic, I mean, if you have two separate accounts for business reasons, like I don't know, like she is the heiress of a corporation and you are the heir of a corporation, and if her company gets shut down, if you're attached to that, then yours is going to get shut down, because like there's lots of underhanded business stuff that goes on out there in the world that I can understand why husband and wife have separate bank accounts, but that's not what the world is on. The world is on, in case he or she decides to walk away, you need to have this little secret plan, in your back pocket, just in case, just in case you meant, or just in case the other person didn't really mean I do with the altar. And it's just like, see, there you go, right there. You got married not trusting each other, not fully trusting each other. You're not operating on one accord. You're not operating as one flesh. You're operating as two fleshes on two different programs. And just because you agree on 90% of things or 95% of things, there's still that 5 to 10% that can cause some trouble. Yeah, what do they say about rat poison? Rat poison is what, 97% food, 3% poison, but it's the poison that kills you. It's the poison that kills them. Again, it's just like, you guys may love doing things together. You guys may be compatible. You guys may have the same set of friends. You may have the same worldview. You may have the same quasi similar religious views, but as long as you got that little thing in your back pocket, like just in case you leave because I don't trust you, we paid for the wedding, we went on our honeymoon, we got blessings from our parents and the pastor and all of our friends, and everyone was happy and dancing during the reception. But just in case you decide to walk away, because you know what that translates to. Yes, you see, a lot of y'all don't think that far. What that translates to is 10, 15 years down the line, when y'all going through some hard times and maybe kids are involved now, and there's let's say y'all don't resolve conflict very well, there's some animosity lying around, then that cancer grows, and that turns into an emotional outburst of, well, I'll just leave. Well, once that's said, guess what? He or she can just leave because they're like, yeah, I'll just leave. And then the rest of that sentence is, because I got a bank account that you can't touch, so therefore I can support myself because I got my own job. And then the other person's going to be like, oh, you're just going to walk away? Oh, wait a minute. I got my own job with my own account and my own stuff that you can't touch. Therefore, go ahead and walk out. I see if I care. I'll be fine on my own. See? And then there you go. And then you start down that path. And don't tell me it doesn't happen. I've seen plenty of divorces where that's exactly how it is. It's like, well, she walked out, but I don't care because she took everything in the house. But, oh, well, I got my own bank account that she can't touch, so or I opened another account that she don't know about, so she can take everything. She can take all the money from that account because I still got X amount of dollars in this one. I'll go I'll go rent an apartment for a little while, earn some more money, buy a house, and then I'm back on my feet, and I'll just go back out and find another person, and she'll be the same way. I took everything. I don't care what he thought, and it doesn't really matter because even if he didn't, I still got my own account over here that he can't even touch. So even if he tries to, countersue me for whatever, I still got my own stuff because, girlfriend, ain't no man gonna tell me what to do. It's just like, here we go. It's like we're down that path, and then what could have been a good marriage is now ruined because everyone had their own little contingency plans. No one was following what the Lord had to say, even though they both sat up there and said to the Lord that I will take care of this person through thick and thin until death do us part. So anyway, it's just more symptoms of the problem. More symptoms of the problem. And I'm interested to see what Aaron's next article will be because again, this is basically so far 2 of 3 articles. I don't know how many articles Aaron's going to do on this. Because he usually just starts writing. Then he'll be like, hey, bro, check this article out. See, what do you think about it? What I have about this? Should I say this? Should I not say this? I don't know. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't consult me, but it's whatever. And we only consult each other just to know it's like, all right, how much backlash are we going to get from this, and how many more like are we gonna lose anybody in saying it this way while still driving the point home? As a matter of fact, that actually reminds me before I go. Someone actually on Gen XY commented on Aaron's post, and it's just, I mean, they try to read him the riot act, but it is just is I think it's dumb. But I'm gonna read it for you because when people comment, we get their email addresses, but what the name that they go under doesn't have to be what their I won't say avatar, but like their username. Their username and their email address ain't the same. So I can kind of guess what this person's real name is based off of their email address, but their handle is Latter Day Fool, and I'm gonna read you verbatim what they said. It says, after carefully reading your ridiculous and honestly, I think it meant vicious. They put vacuous, VACUOUS. I think they meant vicious article, but I don't know. Vacacious, I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, after reading your ridiculous and honestly vacacious article, I have come to the conclusion that I am both disappointed and disgusted with you as a fellow Christian and human being. Here we go. Your opinion, your opinion and advice is neither warranted nor wanted. Actually, it is warranted in a lot of areas, and it is wanted because a lot of people, I say a lot of people we've talked to about this stuff have agreed on a lot of different issues. It's like, as of saying, yeah, you're right, that is a problem I've run into, and I don't understand why. And it's mainly the men talking about the women. But there's some stuff that the women come to us too with. It's the, why are men soft? Why won't men step up? Why won't men do this? It's just like, yeah, it's because we're all on that, Jesus is my girlfriend mentality. It's like girls on the Jesus is my boyfriend. It's like, yeah, you're not going to have a strong man who sits here and looks at Jesus as this, soft hippie who just goes around saying, I love all of you. Let's all just stop fighting. Like that's not going to produce a strong man. And Jesus won't even like that. I mean, but whatever. Back to the comment. A woman's body is no one else's but her own. See, there we go. Feminism right there. Right there. Whether this is a man or a woman, because I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, even by their email address. I don't know whether it's male or female, but we got men acting like women. So what's the difference? Your objectification of women is vile and shows your lack of maturity. Maybe your backwards, borderline, puritanical view of women as property is why you aren't married. I ain't gonna put Aaron's business out there, but let's just say that Aaron is in a relationship. No, he's not married, and no, he's not engaged, but marriage talks are in the works, and Aaron does not objectify women. So let's just, I'm gonna just put that out there, and I'm gonna let sleeping dogs lie, because I ain't gonna put his business out there. But trust me, marriage ain't too far away for this dude. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. So you can go ahead and check that, Latter Day Fool. Why do you believe that women need to conform to your idea of a perfect woman? This is Aaron's describing what the Bible says women should be like, but he's putting it in modern day terms, and now people are getting upset. See, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, and this is what Aaron talked about in our conservative, in our problems of the Christian dating world. Conservative side is people keep wanting to bring feminism into the Bible. The Bible does not allow for feminism. Period. On any level. The Bible tells women, like in Proverbs 31, that yes, you should work and you should sell scarves and make stuff in the markets and blah, 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 blah. And you should operate and you should do work. But your primary focus is in the home. That's what the Bible says to women. And that's what Aaron is saying. So Aaron's just repeating what the Bible says, but putting it in modern day vernacular. So when I read all these comments and I hear people in our personal lives, because again, Aaron and I, we've been, friends for, I don't know, almost 20 years. When I hear people sit here and talk about, like, why does Aaron say this and why does Aaron say that, and he's puritanical and he just wants them with, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. It's like, no, he doesn't. He's saying he's repeating what that book that you claim to read and follow says, but clearly you haven't read it, or else you wouldn't be running around hollering and screaming. But it's funny that the women in our Bible study agree with Aaron on a whole lot of stuff, but that's because they actually read the book. But hey, I ain't gonna go into all that. But anyway. Moving on, perfect woman. Are women not independent, intelligent beings as well, or do you see us as okay? So it must be a woman. See us as a piece of art on a mantle. See again. No one said that women weren't to operate. That women weren't individual human beings. No one said that. The Bible doesn't even say that either. Again, see, this is the mixing of feminism and mixing of Christianity. Like you can't do. It's oil and water. And what did Jesus say about oil and water? So. I probably should say what you said about oil and water because clearly this person didn't read it, but whatever. Anyway, rethink your argument. Use an ounce of decency and maybe one of the 3 brain cells you have. Get back at me. Okay, so we're going to go to personal attacks and insults. Again. See, this is more indications of the problem. It's, I'm a Christian following the Lord, but I'm going to take what the world has to say and use it to override or to emphasize what God has to say. What did Jesus say? Jesus himself said it. Before the world hated you, they hated me, which already says what? God's program and the world's program is not the same program. It's just like these constant reminders and reiterations of the same themes. It's just this is why we got these problems. Is because people keep trying to do what the world says while simultaneously doing what God says. But anyway, I gotta go. That's my video, John from the Gen XY.